Picture this: July 2024, and after 5 years of development, Peacock suddenly kills their Battlestar Galactica reboot without warning. No explanation, no official statement, just silence. But here's what they don't want you to know. This cancellation is just the latest victim of a curse that's haunted this franchise for decades. Behind the shiny Cylons and epic space battles lies a web of corporate conspiracy, deadly merchandise, religious manipulation, and production chaos so wild it makes the show's fiction look tame. What you're about to discover will change how you see this beloved sci-fi series forever. From secret lawsuits that nearly destroyed television history, to cover-ups that reach the highest levels of Hollywood, these are the dark truths they tried to bury. So buckle up, because we're about to expose the real story behind Battlestar Galactica.
Attention, attention. Is evidence in areas.
The 2024 reboot should have been the franchise's triumphant return. Ron Moore, the mastermind behind the acclaimed 2004 series, was back in the captain's chair. Peacock had given it the green light, fans were buzzing, and production was moving forward. Then suddenly, without any public explanation, the project vanished. Sources close to the production revealed the real reason wasn't budget cuts or creative differences. It was Moore's iron-fisted control that killed the project. Moore had reportedly become obsessed with maintaining his vision from the 2004 reboot, demanding that no humanoid Cylons appear in the new series. He wanted to return to the robot-only concept from the 1978 original, but network executives knew that humanoid Cylons were what made the reboot successful. The behind-the-scenes battles became so toxic that key writers walked away, and Peacock executives realized they had an unworkable situation. Rather than face another public relations disaster, they quietly shelved the project and moved on. But this pattern of promising Galactica projects dying mysterious deaths isn't new. It's been happening for over 4 decades, and industry insiders whisper about the Galactica curse. Every attempt to revive or continue the franchise seems doomed from the start. The question is why? The curse might trace back to one of the darkest chapters in the franchise's history, a chapter that toy companies and networks desperately tried to cover up. You probably know that a child died from choking on a Battlestar Galactica toy missile in 1978, but what you don't know is how deep the cover-up went. The toy wasn't just dangerous, it was knowingly dangerous. Internal Mattel documents that surfaced years later in sealed court cases revealed that safety engineers had warned about the spring-loaded missiles months before the toys hit shelves. The projectiles were too small, too powerful, and designed in a way that made them perfect choking hazards. But Mattel was desperate to cash in on the sci-fi boom, and executives overruled safety concerns. When 4-year-old Jeffrey Slack died after swallowing the missile, and another child was hospitalized, Mattel's legal team went into overdrive. They paid massive settlements to the families, amounts that remain sealed to this day, and used their influence to keep the story from becoming front-page news. The recall was framed as a precautionary measure, not an admission of fault. Here's the truly twisted part. The tragedy didn't just change toy safety standards, it changed how networks approached sci-fi violence. The image of a child dying while playing with space toys became a nightmare scenario that haunts executives to this day. Some industry veterans believe this incident created an unconscious bias against Battlestar Galactica projects, making networks nervous about anything associated with the brand. But the toy disaster was just the beginning of Battlestar Galactica's legal nightmares. The show had barely hit the airwaves when George Lucas unleashed his lawyers in what became one of the most vicious copyright battles in entertainment history. Lucas wasn't just angry about similarities, he was furious about what he saw as outright theft. His legal team identified over 30 specific elements they claimed Battlestar Galactica had stolen, from the obvious ones like robot designs and space battles, to subtle details like opening text crawls and the concept of an evil empire. But the real drama happened behind closed doors. Sources from the Lucasfilm legal department reveal that Lucas personally demanded universal halt production of Battlestar Galactica entirely. He threatened to tie up the show in courts for years, bankrupting Universal with legal fees. The meetings between studio heads became legendary for their hostility. Lucas reportedly told Universal executives that he would destroy anyone who tried to profit from his ideas. Universal fought back by threatening to countersue, claiming that Lucas had stolen ideas from classic sci-fi films like Silent Running and THX 1138. They argued that space battles and robot villains weren't copyrightable concepts. The legal war dragged on for months, with both sides spending millions on attorney fees. What finally ended the battle wasn't a legal victory. It was politics. Universal had distribution deals with Lucas for future projects, and both studios realized they were damaging each other's bottom lines. They quietly settled out of court, with terms that remain sealed. But industry insiders say Universal paid Lucas a substantial sum and agreed to never produce another space-based sci-fi series that resembled Star Wars. This settlement created a legal landmine that still affects Battlestar Galactica projects today. Every revival has to carefully navigate the restrictions created by that secret agreement, limiting creative freedom and making networks nervous about copyright issues. The legal battles were just symptoms of a deeper problem. The show was built on a foundation of deception that most fans never suspected. Creator Glenn Larson wasn't just making science fiction entertainment. He was using the show as a vehicle for Mormon religious doctrine, and he was hiding it from everyone involved. Larson was a devout member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, and he systematically embedded LDS theology into every aspect of Battlestar Galactica's mythology. The Lost 13th Tribe wasn't just a plot device. It directly mirrored Mormon beliefs about lost tribes and divine destinies. The planet Kobol was a barely disguised version of Kolob, the star closest to God in Mormon cosmology. But here's what makes it sinister. Larson deliberately hid his religious agenda from network executives and even his own writing staff. He presented the spiritual elements as generic sci-fi world-building, knowing that ABC would never have approved a show that was essentially Mormon missionary work disguised as entertainment. Former writers from the show revealed that Larson would rewrite scripts to add religious references they hadn't included. He'd change character dialogue to include spiritual themes that felt out of place. When writers questioned these additions, Larson would dismiss their concerns as not understanding the deeper mythology. The deception went beyond just inserting religious themes. Larson used his position to promote Mormon values and worldviews, from the importance of family structures to concepts about divine destiny and chosen people. For practicing Mormons watching the show, the references were unmistakable. For everyone else, it was subliminal religious programming they never consented to receive. This hidden agenda created deep resentment among cast and crew members who felt manipulated. Some actors refused to deliver certain lines once they understood the religious context. The tension became so bad that several key personnel threatened to quit if Larson didn't dial back the missionary work. But by then, the show's mythology was so intertwined with Mormon doctrine that removing it would have required completely rewriting the series. The religious manipulation was just one symptom of the chaos behind the cameras. The transition from TV movies to weekly series happened so fast that the production became a barely controlled disaster. Scripts were being written hours before filming, actors were reading lines off hidden cue cards, and the pressure to deliver weekly episodes was destroying everyone involved. Cast members describe a workplace that bordered on abusive. Filming days stretched to 16 hours or more, with actors given no time to learn their lines properly. The famous cue card incident wasn't just occasional. It was standard operating procedure for most episodes. Actors would stick cards behind control panels, on walls, even on other actors' backs just to get through scenes. Director interviews from the time reveal the impossible situation they faced. They'd show up to direct episodes with incomplete scripts, no idea how scenes were supposed to end, and actors who were exhausted from the brutal schedule. Some directors quit mid-production, unable to handle the stress. The chaos wasn't just affecting quality, it was creating safety hazards. Rushing through complex space battle scenes with limited time and resources led to equipment failures and on-set accidents. Actors were getting injured because proper safety protocols were being skipped to meet deadlines. Glenn Larson's response to complaints about working conditions was reportedly dismissive. He'd tell cast members that they were living the adventure and that the pressure was creating authentic performances. But behind the scenes, agents were fielding calls from actors wanting to break their contracts. The desperation to cut costs led to increasingly ridiculous measures. Those iconic land vehicles weren't futuristic props. They were literally painted military surplus equipment bought at government auctions. The advanced technology viewers saw was spray-painted household items and car parts glued together. But the cost-cutting went deeper than cheap props. The show's famous space battles were created using mirrors, fishing line, and model kits that cost less than $20 each. The explosions that looked so impressive on screen were often just footage of firecrackers detonating, filmed in slow motion and reversed to look more dramatic. Sound effects were stolen from other sci-fi movies and TV shows, slightly modified to avoid copyright issues. The iconic Cylon voice wasn't created with expensive equipment. It was actor Michael Hinn speaking through a cheap radio filter that cost less than $50. These desperate measures worked for television audiences in 1978, but they created a show that couldn't age gracefully. When fans tried to watch episodes on better televisions or in high definition, the cheap tricks became obvious and embarrassing. This technical shoddiness became another obstacle to successful revivals, as modern audiences expected production values that the original could never deliver. The pattern of failure that started with the original series has continued to plague every attempt to revive Battlestar Galactica. The 1980 sequel series was canceled after 10 episodes. Multiple movie projects in the 1990s died in development. Even the successful 2004 reboot ended controversially with a finale that divided fans and critics. Each failed project seems to follow the same pattern: initial excitement, promising development, behind-the-scenes conflicts, and sudden cancellation. Industry veterans describe it as the most cursed franchise in science fiction, worse even than the troubled history of Dune adaptations. The 2024 Peacock cancellation is just the latest casualty. Sources reveal that other networks have approached the franchise owners about new projects, but each time the deals fall through for mysterious reasons. Some insiders believe that the original legal settlements with Lucas contain clauses that make new productions nearly impossible. Others think the Mormon Church's ongoing influence over the estate creates complications that networks want to avoid. But the real curse might be simpler. Battlestar Galactica was lightning in a bottle, created by a unique combination of circumstances that can never be replicated. The original's flaws were part of its charm, its cheapness was part of its authenticity, and its controversial elements were what made it memorable. The dark truth is that every attempt to recapture that magic has failed because it's impossible to recreate chaos. The accidents, the mistakes, the desperate improvisation. Those weren't bugs in the original series. They were features. Modern productions, with their focus groups and corporate oversight and safe creative choices, can't capture the wild energy that made the original special. So there you have it, the real story behind Battlestar Galactica's decades of chaos. A franchise built on religious deception, nearly destroyed by corporate lawsuits, cursed by deadly merchandise, and trapped in a cycle of failed revivals that seems impossible to break. The show that promised to explore the deepest questions about humanity and survival became a cautionary tale about the entertainment industry's darkest impulses. Maybe that's fitting for a series about the last survivors of a destroyed civilization, constantly running from enemies they can never quite escape. In Hollywood, as in space, some battles never really end. The next time you hear about a new Battlestar Galactica project in development, remember this history. The curse is real, and it's still hunting.